Good morning, everybody. I am Shelly, and this is the Edgy Gardener channel. So glad you found me. And today I want to talk about the Coleus wall. This is one of the things in my garden that I look forward to creating every single year. I did a planting video in the beginning of the season. I can link that in the comments below. But I wanted to show you, as I promised, what it looks like now, mid-September. See that? It is big and bold and luscious. I'm going to go through the names of the Coleus in here, and I do have a few other things that you can tell other than Coleus, but it is mostly Coleus. And for reference, I am in zone 6 in central Illinois, and this is facing west. This is on my back patio, so it gets the full sun, full blazing hot afternoon sun. This is also sort of a wind tunnel whenever we have storms between my neighbor's house and my house. This wind has very strong gusts. My metal chairs can be toppled over into the gardens, so it moves things. So these are pretty weather tried and true Coleus. Today I am going to start the process of cutting them down and bringing them inside. I think I still have a good amount of time in my growing season. However, there's so much to do in fall cleanup, and I have realized some things about myself that when I do it all at the same time, and I do all of the cleanup and I do all of the cutting and I bring them inside, and I'm just so tired and worn out that I neglect them, and then they die, and the whole process was for naught. Now I'm going to do it in smaller sections. First, I'm going to run you through the varieties, and then we will talk about the process of how I overwintered, lessons I have learned, and why I do it the way I do it. In the video that I did a few years ago about overwintering, I had tons of comments, and thank you so much for all of those. And I do want to address some of those in this video as well. So let's name the Coleus first. Here I have Emerald Tower Basil, and I have 2 plants here. They are huge. I think I have 8 total, all in my garden, and some of them are hip high. I have been cutting on this and making batches and batches of pesto, as well as putting them in dishes. My kids come over when they want to cook, and they take bunches of basil home with them as well. I think the next thing I'm going to try to do is take them and dry them and crush them for herbs. Okay, so in the back here, so we have one that it's just sort of getting eaten up, and this is Heartbreaker Coleus. Really, really pretty colors. When I planted this, I'm going to remind you, if you didn't see that other video, I generally go towards pinks and purples, plums, that sort of thing. And this turned out to be more of a fall-ish, more moody, warm colors. And I have to say that I did miss my purple and pinks. I knew that when I planted it, oh, I'm gonna love it in September, and I do. It is gorgeous for right now. But next year I will do things differently because I missed that summer coloring of the pinks and purples. So, you know, there again, learned more lessons. But we have the Heartbreaker, like I said, and then we have the Proven Winners Color Blaze Torchlight. And Proven Winners, when you see the Color Blaze, you know that that will do well in sun or shade. Most Coleus is marketed as shade plant. And I think all of these would do wonderful in shade. I'm actually curious how they would be different coloring wise in shade. And I think I might do that next year. But there again, Proven Winners, if you see Color Blaze, you can put them in sun. This is a trailer Coleus, and that is another Proven Winner Color Blaze Chocolate Drop. And this has always been a great performer for me. Very, very consistent. And it does trail very wonderfully. Another thing I want to mention about the Color Blaze Coleus is that they flower much less. You can see over here I have some stems here. I have not had to cut any flowers off of Coleus. And the reason why we would want to cut off the flowers is it means that they're not putting on as much growth because their energy is going into the blooms instead of the plants. So most of us who love Coleus grow it for the foliage, not the flowers. And that's a benefit of the Color Blaze, is that just a little less work. And the big red one that I'm talking about is called Redhead Coleus. And it has done very well, but I think I have some other reds that I like better. Next year I will look harder for the Beale Street or the Ridiculous Coleus. And I think that's in order of my favorite. Now in the back, right here and in the back, I have Lime Time Coleus. And generally this one has been my most aggressive grower, but this year, not so much. It's done well, but that's the one I usually have to cut back and keep away from the other plants. But I have 2 of those here. Now in here I have some Vermillionaire Coffea, and I put this in here just so I could have the hummingbirds, and boy, have I ever had the hummingbirds. I have a little feeder there, which is full of ants right now. That's gross. But the hummingbirds do stop in all of the time and feed off of this Coffea. I don't like orange. I have not enjoyed the flower. I only enjoy the hummingbirds. I wish this came in different colors. So this one is the Marrakesh. And this was one of the varieties that was one of my favorite a few years ago when I did a video, and I had so many comments, and the comments helped me find the name of it and the variety. And it's so unique because it has like these duck feet leaves. And I don't know why, I love this one so much. And I was buying it from a nursery who was overwintering it, and they lost the name of it. Once I found the name through the comments, I was able to shop for it and found a number of them. And I've never been successful overwintering it. Not because it's difficult, that's my own habits. Now in the back I have Proven Winners Color Blaze Wicked Hot right here. See, it has some oranges, kind of coppery, and then some green as well. And I'm really curious how this would look in shade. I think it would look kind of deeper, maybe like this. So again, another Color Blaze, I don't know if I said that series. I do like Wicked Hot. I also like Campfire or Sedona for that coloring. This is Wicked Witch. I had to look at my notes because I don't remember. And the Wicked Witch with the Lime Time is lovely. I don't like it so much compared next to the Redhead. Again, more Lime Time running through here, and back here, barely, is a Peach Frizz. And that has some pinks and some plums and some greens. That's sort of paint splotchy, really, really neat. It kind of gets lost in the color scheme. I didn't place that very well. Okay, so I have another Heartbreaker. And back here with all of the flowers, I have a Kong Coleus, which is supposed to be giant leaves. And they are big leaves, but they're not Kong-like leaves. Maybe those would get bigger and better in the shade. This is not a Proven Winners or a Color Blaze, so I think it was just my son that did that. And I would just take those off. I have more basil here, and then this one is interesting because this is fishnet stockings. And this colored for me so differently than it has in the past. I actually don't like this as much as what I've had in the past. And I don't know if if they changed the variety, maybe it was mislabeled, but I've always had it in full sun and it's looked completely different. More purple and plum than green, but fishnet stockings, more basil, and then I just have my Marguerite sweet potato vine in the bottom here. So a quick recap. I've been very happy with the growth rate and how the Coleus performed this year. So I am planning on redoing a Coleus wall next year, just with different colors. But I do want to take these and bring them inside, winter them, and expand my collection so that next year I have the opportunity to put these in more shady spots. And I do have some holes in my garden that I can't quite figure out how I want to fill. So I would like to just put clusters of Coleus and just fill them in until I figure out which perennials I want to go there. So let me tell you about my process. So my plan is to take off the tops of the coleus and strip off some of the bottom leaves and then root them in jars of water like this. And these are just grocery store, like pickle jars, things like that. I have 6 jars, and it doesn't matter if I mix the varieties in them. I don't have that many varieties to choose from, so I'll know what they are. But after a few weeks, we should see roots growing. My plan a few years ago was just to leave them in water all season and then plant them in the spring directly from the water. That does not work. It doesn't work for me anyway. What happens is they do grow roots, but the longer they sit in water, they're not getting any nutrients, and they rotted or they wilted, died. Sometimes a few jars did go empty, just did not stay healthy in the water. So what I have been experimenting with is going ahead and rooting them in the water. And I do have an example right here, which when I went to pull this out, it was dry. So it's a bit droopy, but these have been in here for about a month. This is a Newly Noir from Proven Winners, and I don't remember the name of this one, but I'm just showing you the roots. So after a month, this one is really, really growing, and then this one has enough to plant, but not as vigorous as this one. So once they get to this stage, they should be planted in soil, and just a potting soil with perlite or maybe a few leca balls, a few bark chips. That's what I put them in. And you put them in small containers. You don't give them too much room. So here is an example of one that I rooted and then planted in this small container, and then I just have this cover pot. So it looks like this. And then here is another one that's planted directly in the pot, and that's sort of a pretty one. See how full it is. And then this is what I will keep all winter, and I will continue to cut this back. I don't want it to get tall. I want it to be sort of low mounding and really bushy. Now, and I have seen them recently at a shop in St. Louis where they made like a standard, like a tree, and it was, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 feet tall, and they just shaved all the leaves off of the stem, and it was a thick, like a small tree, and just leaves up top. That was really neat. I might try that. I think that would be neat. But this is the goal, and I want them looking this healthy all winter. When I take them inside, I put them in my foyer, which I have east-facing sun through the window, and I have an IKEA greenhouse there. And I will put them in the greenhouse while they're rooting and right after they're planted. And then as I'm moving things in and out, I will then put them on top of the greenhouse. I also put them in front of my west-facing window, and that is where this one has been sitting, and it's been very, very happy. I just sort of turn it every 2 weeks so it doesn't lean to one side. I have a room upstairs under grow lights and also a west-facing window, so I'll start to, as my collection expands, as I bring these in, I will put those upstairs. I also have in my basement, it's a finished basement, and I have egress windows facing west. And one year I did line those windows with the coleus, and they loved it down there. It's hard for me to remember to water plants in the basement because I don't typically have plants in the basement, but I will try that. So that's how I keep them inside. So now let's start taking some snips and putting them in water. Somebody asked me why I don't just dig up the whole plant and take that in. You can do that. You can definitely do that. I don't have the space. And really, once I start to take these plants apart, they're not really pretty at the base. They're prettier up top because the other plants have sort of shaved them of their leaves. And so if I have a medium-sized plant, it would be naked, and I'm having to revive it. I don't want to take the time to try and revive it. And really, I don't have the space to put in full-grown plants. But if you did have the space, you could definitely do that. But somebody asked me why I don't. The other thing is I don't really dip the stems in root hormones or cinnamon or anything like that. I think they do fine for me in water. If you did do that, maybe you get a quicker result, but I don't really need it to be quicker. You know, roots within a month is fine with me. So just because of the space that I have and me knowing my own habits and the energy I'm willing to put forth for these coleus all winter long, this is my method. Water to soil under lights. And the thing about the coleus is they are adaptable. And if they do dry out, they will bounce back. But we do want to keep them as stress-free as possible to get them as healthy as possible. And so they're more vigorous when they come out next winter. So they do like to stay moist. So my goal, my number one goal of this season is to not let them dry out. When I say dry out, I mean bone dry. I have done it before and I have lost a lot of them that way. Some have bounced back. One of the lime lights that I showed you, Lime Time and the Peach Fizz, those are two that I overwintered and they weren't as vigorous as the other ones. So that could be because I had a stressed plant. So I am vowing to do better this year and I hope to take you along with that process. But right now, let's get these coleus pieces in the jar. So I want to stop and talk about for a second this Heartbreaker coleus. I realized once I started getting the plants apart from one another that this grew up in 3 tall stalks just because it was being overshadowed by the other ones, where like this one was really shrubby and bushy. So I had said before that I'm going to take off the top few inches, but this one I don't have as many plants to take off from. So I did cut one here and I cut it again. So this will grow. You don't have to get the top. I was doing that because I think the top grows and roots the quickest and the easiest. But you can go down the whole plant and take pieces. They're not as pretty when they're rooting when they're like this, but they will work for you. I have a guest with me today, and he threw all of his toys down, and I think he's eating my petunias. I think he is. Hi. You like that? So here are the stages of this project. You have the planted coleus, you have my visitor, you have the cuttings, well, you have the shrapnel, the cuttings, the rootings, and then the plants. A few things that I have learned is after you put these cuttings in water, they're very thirsty for the first week, week and a half. So make sure to check that water, and just the movements of the house and environmental things, they move around. So sometimes everything can be in water, and even if the water's at the same level, the plants sort of inch themselves up out of the water. I don't know quite how they do that, but it does happen. So for the first week, you should be checking pretty diligently that they have enough water and that they are all inside they are all drinking from the water. And These I will be planting up very, very soon. I didn't know if I was going to keep these or give these to somebody else, but these will go into a pot right away. And when you do put those in a pot, the same thing, these are water roots, and so they are used to always being hydrated. So when you do put them in soil, they will also be extra thirsty for the first few weeks. So it is watching them very, very closely, both newly rooted and newly planted. I plan to come out and take more cuttings a little bit later. I am racing the sun, so the sun's just about to peak over the house and we're about to be in full sun, and my guest needs some attention as well. And I also have some coleus in other areas of the property that I want to take in, and I'll put that on film and let you guys in on that too. Coleus is a very popular plant, and it's so easy to grow, and if you're not familiar with it, I hope this helped you out a little bit. And if you didn't know how to winter it, I would encourage you to give it a try, because it's satisfying, and I did this in hopes to save money to where one plant here bought this year can grow into 5 plants that I overwinter, and I don't have to buy next year. That's the plan. I tend to buy the same amount of plants every year, even no matter how many I overwinter, so I don't know how that's working out. Maybe I'm expanding my garden. That's it. I just have more spaces to plant. So that is part of another project off the list. And if you have a favorite variety of coleus, I would love to know. Coleus comes in so many varieties and so many colors. I just can't get enough of them. So let me know your favorite coleus variety in the comments. Thank you so much, and I hope you have time in your garden today. Bye.